When we step into the arena of life, we must carry with us the courage to confront hard truths. Today, let us talk about recognizing the markers of destructive behavior, not to tear anyone down, but to build ourselves up with wisdom, discernment, and strength. And we often hear the phrase, toxic people. It's become a buzzword used to label anyone whose behavior doesn't align with our expectations. But let's take a step back and approach this idea with intention. Recognizing toxic traits is not about pointing fingers, playing the victim, or assigning blame. It's about equipping ourselves with the clarity and courage to protect our peace, our energy, and our emotional well-being. When someone exhibits harmful behaviors, manipulation, deceit, control, or relentless criticism, it's easy to feel hurt, angry, or betrayed. But here's the reality. We can't control how others behave. What we can control is how we respond, and that begins with understanding. Recognizing toxic traits isn't an act of judgment. It's an act of awareness. Awareness that certain behaviors are not about us, but about the person exhibiting them. When we recognize these traits, we gain the power to draw boundaries. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are the fences that protect what matters most, our mental and emotional health. They allow us to say, I care about myself enough to step back when this interaction no longer feels safe or respectful. Boundaries are an act of self-love, not selfishness. It's also important to realize that when we focus solely on blaming others for their toxicity, we give away our power. Blame is easy. It allows us to externalize the problem and avoid the uncomfortable work of looking within. But true growth doesn't happen in the space of blame. It happens in the space of accountability. Accountability means asking ourselves, why am I tolerating this behavior? What patterns within me need to change so I can make healthier choices? This doesn't mean we excuse harmful behavior. Accountability isn't about justifying someone else's toxicity. It's about taking ownership of our response to it. We can acknowledge that someone's actions are wrong without becoming consumed by anger or resentment. Recognizing toxicity is the first step. Choosing how to navigate it is where our strength lies. Let's also be mindful that people are complex. Toxic traits are often born from unhealed wounds. When we approach these situations with empathy, not to enable but to understand, we begin to see the bigger picture. Compassion doesn't mean we let someone continue to hurt us. It means we choose not to perpetuate the cycle of hurt. We can step away with love instead of bitterness. Finally, recognizing toxic traits is not about labeling someone as evil or bad. It's about acknowledging behaviors that are harmful and deciding how we will protect ourselves. It's a balance, choosing wisdom over judgment, boundaries over blame. When we focus on boundaries rather than blame, we empower ourselves to create healthier relationships, stronger self-respect, and a life that prioritizes peace. And that, ultimately, is where freedom lies. Self-awareness is one of the most powerful tools we can cultivate in life. It is the foundation upon which emotional strength is built, and it equips us to navigate life's challenges with resilience and clarity. But self-awareness is not always easy. It requires courage, vulnerability, and a willingness to face truths about ourselves that we may not want to acknowledge. At its core, self-awareness means being deeply attuned to your thoughts, emotions, and actions. It's about understanding why you feel what you feel and why you do what you do. This understanding allows you to take responsibility for your behavior even when it's uncomfortable. When we lack self-awareness, we risk falling into cycles of blame, defensiveness, and self-deception. But when we nurture self-awareness, we create space for growth, healing, and emotional freedom. Emotional strength begins with this inner clarity. For example, when faced with conflict, a self-aware person doesn't react impulsively or let their emotions take control. Instead, they pause and reflect. They ask themselves, what am I really feeling right now? Is it anger or is it hurt? What's triggering me? And how can I respond in a way that aligns with my values? This ability to pause and reflect is a hallmark of emotional strength. It allows us to respond rather than react. Self-awareness also helps us identify our patterns, both positive and negative. Perhaps you notice that you tend to avoid confrontation, even when it's necessary. Or maybe you realize that you often seek external validation to feel worthy. These patterns, when left unexamined, can shape our lives in ways that hold us back. But when we become aware of them, we regain control. We can make intentional choices to break free from unhelpful habits and create new, healthier ones. What's more, self-awareness fosters empathy and deeper connections with others. When we understand our own emotions, we become better equipped to understand the emotions of those around us. We recognize that just as we have our struggles and insecurities, so do others. This awareness creates a space for compassion. It allows us to approach others with curiosity rather than judgment, to listen more deeply, and to build relationships rooted in trust and understanding. However, self-awareness is not a destination, it's a journey. It's a practice that requires ongoing effort. There will be times when we fall short, when we act out of fear or frustration rather than reflection, and that's okay. The beauty of self-awareness is that it doesn't demand perfection. It simply asks for honesty. When we stumble, we can choose to learn from it, to grow, and to do better next time. Ultimately, self-awareness is about empowerment. It's about taking ownership of our lives and emotions rather than being controlled by them. It's about standing firm in who we are while also being open to change. And as we deepen our self-awareness, we cultivate the emotional strength to face life's challenges with courage, grace, and authenticity. Courage is often misunderstood. Many of us are taught that courage is about being strong, unshakable, and fearless. We think it means charging ahead, never showing weakness, and always having the upper hand. But true courage doesn't look like that at all. True courage lies in the quiet, often uncomfortable act of embracing vulnerability. It's about having the strength to be open, honest, and authentic, even when it feels risky or terrifying. Manipulation, on the other hand, is the opposite of courage. It's born from fear and insecurity. People who manipulate others do so because they are afraid of losing control, of being exposed, or of facing their own shortcomings. Manipulation is a mask, a way of hiding from the truth. And while it may appear powerful on the surface, it is ultimately a sign of deep emotional weakness. When we choose to embrace vulnerability instead of resorting to manipulation, we are choosing courage over fear. Vulnerability means saying, I don't have all the answers, or I'm hurt, or I need help. It means showing up as we truly are, imperfections and all. It's not about being naive or exposing ourselves recklessly. It's about being honest and real in a world that often values masks over authenticity. Rejecting manipulation also means refusing to engage in manipulative behaviors ourselves. This can be difficult, especially if we've been taught that manipulation is a way to protect ourselves or get what we want. But when we manipulate others, we undermine trust and authenticity. We rob relationships of their foundation. Instead, we can choose to live with integrity. This means being clear and direct about our needs and boundaries. It means communicating openly, even when it's hard. It means respecting others enough to let them make their own choices without trying to control or coerce them. Embracing vulnerability and rejecting manipulation is not an easy path. Vulnerability leaves us open to rejection, criticism, and pain, and letting go of manipulative tactics can feel like giving up a sense of power. But here's the truth. Vulnerability is where real power lies. It's where connection is born. It's where healing happens. Think about the people in your life who inspire you. Chances are they are not the ones who manipulate or control. They are the ones who show up with courage and authenticity. They are the ones who admit their mistakes, share their struggles, and live with an open heart. That's what true strength looks like. Choosing courage over manipulation also frees us from the exhausting cycle of trying to control everything. When we embrace vulnerability, we learn to trust not just others, but ourselves. We trust that we're enough just as we are. We trust that we can handle whatever comes our way, even if it's painful or uncertain. We can pick out of the dress in front of us without fear or guilt. I mean, listen, their world and go through in their women with an fear or guilt. I want a person to go out there and do day one. True courage is not about avoiding pain or projecting invincibility. It's about being brave enough to feel, to connect, and to live authentically. And when we choose this path, we build a life that is not only stronger, but also richer and more meaningful. Healing, both personal and relational, is not about fixing others or proving who is right. It begins with a choice to approach ourselves and others with empathy rather than judgment. It's a decision to soften our hearts and see beyond the surface, to recognize the shared humanity that connects us all, even when pain and conflict seem to divide us. Judgment is easy. It's our mind's default reaction when we feel hurt, betrayed, or misunderstood. It offers us a sense of superiority or control, whispering, "They're wrong, I'm right." But judgment, as tempting as it may be, doesn't lead to resolution. It creates walls instead of bridges. It locks us into cycles of resentment and prevents us from seeing the bigger picture. Empathy, on the other hand, takes effort. It requires us to pause, step outside of our own perspective, and imagine what someone else might be experiencing. It doesn't mean we excuse harmful behavior or invalidate our own feelings. It means we try to understand the deeper story behind the actions. What pain, fear, or insecurity might be driving this person? What unhealed wounds might they be carrying? This doesn't mean we tolerate toxic or abusive behavior. Empathy and boundaries go hand in hand. Empathy allows us to see a person's humanity, while boundaries protect our peace and safety. For example, we can acknowledge that someone's manipulation stems from their own fears, while still choosing to walk away from the relationship if it's unhealthy. Empathy doesn't erase accountability. It simply makes room for compassion. Choosing empathy also transforms how we see ourselves. Too often we are our own harshest critics, judging ourselves for our mistakes, imperfections, or moments of weakness. But healing begins when we show ourselves the same empathy we offer others. When we say, "I'm doing the best I can with what I know," we create space for self-compassion and growth. Empathy is a bridge. It connects us to others and to ourselves. When we practice empathy, we create an environment where healing becomes possible. Relationships that were once strained can begin to mend when we approach them with understanding. Conversations that were once combative can become opportunities for connection. And the inner critic that once kept us stuck can be replaced with a kinder, more supportive voice. But let's be clear, choosing empathy doesn't mean we'll never feel anger, frustration, or sadness. Those emotions are valid and natural. What empathy does is help us channel those emotions in a way that fosters healing rather than division. It reminds us that everyone is carrying something we cannot see, and that extending grace, even in small ways, can make a profound difference. Healing isn't about finding perfection in others or ourselves. It's about finding connection, understanding, and a willingness to grow. When we choose empathy over judgment, we create space for transformation, not just for others, but for ourselves. And in that space, true healing begins. In life, we are often faced with challenges that test our emotional strength, our integrity, and our capacity for growth. The path forward is not always clear, but it is within our power to choose how we respond. Recognizing toxic traits, cultivating self-awareness, embracing vulnerability, and choosing empathy over judgment are not just tools for navigating relationships. They are the building blocks of a meaningful and fulfilling life. Each of these choices requires courage. It takes courage to set boundaries when it's easier to stay silent. It takes courage to look inward and face our own flaws. It takes courage to show up authentically in a world that often rewards masks. And it takes courage to meet pain with empathy instead of judgment. But here's the beauty of courage. It doesn't just transform how we see ourselves. It transforms how we connect with others. When we approach life with wisdom, compassion, and authenticity, we become agents of healing, not just for ourselves, but for those around us. We break cycles of harm and create space for growth, understanding, and love. In the end, true strength isn't about avoiding pain or controlling others. It's about living with integrity, staying grounded in our values, and choosing love over fear, even when it's hard. And when we do that, we don't just survive the challenges life throws at us. We thrive. The journey won't be perfect, and that's okay. What matters is that we keep showing up, keep learning, and keep choosing to live with courage and grace. Because in the end, that's where healing, connection, and freedom truly lie.